The following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Welcome in, everybody, to Taking Care of Business today, featuring Dr. Ellie with Generations Chiropractic. And we're going to have a whole bunch to talk about today. But the biggest topic I think we're going to start off with is kind of an important one. We know there's two great employees there for sure. I don't know if you have any other employees there.
I have a part-time front desk person who helps out in some of the afternoons.
Okay, so we'll say three great employees there.
Yeah, I was going to say she's great. And
which is wonderful, yourself being one of them. But of course, we're always curious about what's going on with everybody's favorite teammate there, which is Minnie Pearl. And it sounds like Minnie Pearl is getting a little bit of vacation time coming up.
Or maybe it's more I'm getting a vacation from her. I love her. She's great in the clinic, and she can be a little much at times. But yeah, she was on vacation right now with my parents, who either we call the grandparents or we just literally call them the spares.
There you go. I like that. Maybe we should start calling my parents the spares. See how that goes. My dad may not be a fan. And I always love because we get these updates from you periodically. I got one today, and I spent so much time looking at this photo and laughing. For those of you who aren't tuned in on Daily Dodge TV, highly recommend you get a chance to either go back and watch it or tune in now. I'm going to bring this photo up. I love this. So, Minnie Pearl, you were telling me this great story. When I saw it, the first thing I said was, look at that face. I had to do a zoom in on the face. Like, this is Minnie Pearl doing a face that I think so many Shih Tzus and dogs of that type do, with that kind of like, you put it best, you said, this is an ownership face. Like, this is mine.
Oh yeah, that she's like, I'm totally owning the clinic right now. These cushions that I'm on, totally mine, even though she distinctly knows the rules that she's not supposed to be on those cushions unless kids are playing with them.
Now, that being said, I had commented before the show that I thought this looked like a fort. Like, I saw this and said this is a fort that some kids put together. It's just missing a sheet over the top to be the perfect little castle or whatever your fantasy, dream mind can come up with. And you kind of confirmed that that's kind of what happened there a little bit.
Yeah, so that's totally my desire when I got these cushions. It's called the Nugget, and I purchased them previously for the clinic because I want kids to not be able to just play, but also sometimes a physical and interactive play. So like you get to be creative, you get to build the forts, you get to rearrange the different cushions and create whatever structures and imaginative play, as well as being involved in something too.
And we'll talk a little bit more as the show goes on about kind of the importance of kids in play and how watching them play kind of helps you diagnose what their chiropractic needs are. And we'll get into that. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because anytime we can get an update on Minnie Pearl, we will always, of course, take it. So welcome anybody to go and check out the stream if you haven't already. Before we dive into our list of topics for today, I do want to remind people how they can find you.
Yeah.
So feel free to let everybody know right away if they don't know how to find you, where they can locate you.
GenerationsChiropracticWI.com is the best email. Well, I guess that's the website. The email is very similar, though. It's still GenerationsChiropracticWI@gmail.com. But so many people love just booking online, super easy for them that way, that, hey, I'm going to go to the website. If times work well as an established patient, or if people who are even interested in being new patients, you can create an account and book online there too. And then it's like we'll email back and forth and be like, here's some intake paperwork, all that fun stuff. Or other people literally are like, I'm going to just text you. So people will literally text the phone number at 920-885-0641. Sure, some people will call and leave voicemails, and sometimes it might be phone call tag. Sure, someone might be there to answer, but also with only having a front desk person in the afternoons, like we try to keep it pretty slim, and also the dog doesn't do a great job at answering the phone, so.
Right. Of all the talents Minnie Pearl has, answering the phone, not quite one of them.
Not quite one of them. So there could be a chance of, if you give us a call, though, it might go to voicemail.
Right. And that's the joy nowadays. Technology is so great because there's so many different ways we can communicate. And you've said in the past that, if you're looking online and you see some open slots and none of them really work for what you need, maybe reaching out with a call or text is a great way to go because there could be some flexibility. There could be some wiggle room on things, and you're pretty good about that.
Absolutely. And I've even noticed that some people are like, hey, I've created a profile, or hey, I've reached out with questions, but then you haven't finished creating the rest of the profile and actually scheduling an appointment. So I'm like, well, then I still get that information of, here is your email address. So I'll be like, hey, were you looking for something different? What are your questions? What are your needs? How can I best support you in the journey of your health and healing?
There you go. And that's what it is. It's a journey, and it's in many ways, as we've learned from our conversations, it's not a one-stop journey. There's a lot of steps on this road. It's a continuous thing. It's a maintenance thing, and it can really be a life-changing thing for people who haven't experienced it and haven't gotten into it. You gave us a great outline of stuff here today, so we're going to dive into it a little bit because there's a major headline in the world. If you ignore the somewhat chilly days and the rain, whatever, but officially summer is here.
Schools are out. Yes, some schools have ended at different times. Like people are like, hey, my kids have already been out for 2 or 3 weeks. And others are like, we're just starting this thing now. And there's a big different dynamic of when you have your kids home all day or if they have to go to a daycare instead of, being in the classroom every day.
That is very true. And we know whether you're a kid, you're a parent, young adult, whatever, there is always a transition for what you do physically and how you, live your life physically when you go from those cold winter months into those warm summer months.
Even myself, I'm so excited that I'm like, hey, I get to go out for nice evening walks without the sun having set yet. Or,
Right.
hey, Minnie Pearl, again, we're going to bring up the dog because even though she's on vacation, she's always here.
Mm-hmm.
She gets so overheated going for walks during midday. So it's like, wait, that's something to look into. Or her allergies get so flared up with all this cottonwood going on. So like, I'm even thinking about how am I planning my day differently and what are some other cool events going on in the area too that I can work around my schedule and attend as well.
Right, and I know plenty of people personally where wintertime they're curled up in a chair somewhere with a warm blanket and a book and a cup of cocoa, and that's their winter life. And then when summer hits, then it's I'm going to go walking, I'm going to go running, I'm going to go boating, I'm going to do all this other stuff outside, and I'm going to be way more active. And that transition from being cramped up and cozy to being outside and moving around, you make it too suddenly, that's when little things can slip, pop, do whatever, and it can be painful.
Well, there's even something to be said for I love my group spin classes at the Y that I go to regularly.
Right.
And this morning I'm like, do I sign up for the next session? Because I'd rather just spend that time outside. I'd
Right.
rather get that fresh air. That's what I want for other people too is, yes, there might be some of those allergens in the air that's, wildfire or whatever from Canada and that kind of thing, that smoke and stuff. And so allergens might be flared up for some people. And again, huge rabbit hole we could go down. But overall, I want people to be able to spend time outside, be active outside, enjoy that fresh air that we don't always get.
Maybe they need to move one of the spin classes outside just to carry all the... That might be a bit of work.
Could that be the workout instead of an actually spin class?
It could be, because that would be a pretty heavy move, I think, for some of those spin bikes. But, there are a lot of people who are looking to find more outdoor activities. Let's start with talking about the kids. We know that kids are going to get outside and they're going to want to do a lot more outside. They're going to run around, they're going to play, they're going to jump, they're going to climb things. That's just what kids do. Kids are kids. Mm-hmm. But it's also a good time to be focusing on, what they might need for chiropractic care.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most exciting things for me is oftentimes kids get that opportunity to have more movement than sitting in the classroom all day. And this is when you see, okay, a lot more different sports activities during the day and different things like that. And yeah, I know plenty of kids end up still going to a daycare situation because parents are working. And, not every child gets that opportunity to have a parent at home. Then it's like, let's run you to this craft activity. And then, okay, then we have the science camp and then we have the sports camp and then we have this and this. But also, hey, let's celebrate that overall kids aren't necessarily sitting in a desk environment learning every day. And education is a beautiful thing. Beautiful job that we start to incorporate into the school system, different positions where we can sit and move and some of those pieces too. And there's something to be said for the brain needs a break too.
That's true. The brain definitely needs a break. And it's nice to let them just kind of, let them go a little bit. Let them get out there. And, activity is key. I know plenty of people where they were very active as youth and they're very active now as adults. Those kids that tend to not be as active, it can be tougher to become active later on.
And one of the things that I think is even so important right now is to mention movement is a beautiful thing. Sometimes people are like, okay, it has to be structured sports. No, how can we get movement? How can we get, general activity to be a good thing? Like the reason I have those cushions in the clinic, I've had some parents who are, you are seeing them take from the little lending library of library books I have in magazines. They don't normally do this during the school year, but then they pull out a book and they just start, perusing themselves so that the kids have more time to play with the cushions. They have ways to interact with other stuff when they're not as stressed of go with the next activity. And that's a beautiful way to get movement, and kids aren't even thinking that this is movement or, oh my goodness, my parent is making me work out right now or do this, and it's not a forced way. play and movement can go hand in hand so well.
Right, and they can have so much more time outside running and playing around. Because in the wintertime, as a parent, I know you're always concerned with, are they bundled up enough? Are they getting too cold? Bring them in to warm them up before you send them back out to play. Again, less daylight hours, so they can't play outside for as long. So it is kind of nice that now you can kind of just open the door, let them run, have a good time. And, as we talked about, play is also important for you when it comes to a lot of these little kids, because it gives you a way to see how they're moving. Mm-hmm. And that can really inform you a lot about what their chiropractic needs might be.
Well, and even when you look at it, okay, sometimes you might get kids who are a little bit more stationary because, hey, it's summer, not everyone is outside playing. Sometimes they're like, this is when I get more opportunity for phone time or screen time or gaming.
Oh, yeah.
And we can get down some of that rabbit hole, but also you can be in more of a common position if you're always slouching one way or, playing your games one way too. So movement as well as being sedentary all provide different information, and especially if you're in a different posture for a long period of time, and definitely want to be able to help all those dynamics and assess where someone is at and how we can get their body functioning and moving better.
And I know I'm going to personally call out a lot of those parents out there, and I myself have fallen into this pitfall where, the kid's on the tablet or whatever, and they've been sitting in the same spot, they haven't moved at all for hours, and it's just head down in the tablet doing whatever they're doing, and I have to mentally tell myself to walk over there and be like, hey, get up, move around a little bit, put it down for a second, go do this. I'll even give them little chores to do, like, hey, real quick, I need you to sweep the kitchen, and then you can go back to whatever you're doing. Stuff to just get them up and doing something.
Those beautiful interruptions are a good thing for the system. And yeah, again, definitely a lot to ramble on about that,
right,
for sure.
Right. And we've talked in the past, one of the biggest things that I've had to battle against, and now all the kids are past it, but the sitting in a W. I don't know what it is with kids. They're so bendy and they get comfortable in that position, but that can cause so many problems.
Yeah, definitely. That, and it's like, so many people don't even know, like, that I should have brought even a picture of that W sitting there, that
right.
People don't even realize that's a bad thing. They're like, oh, kids are bendy, cool. And it's like, oh, no.
Look how flexible they are. It's great.
Sitting that way also impacts, some brain development there. Or, hey, putting them in different sitting upright positions when they aren't ready for it, or different jumpers. Like, again, some of those can be impacting, again, literally brain development. And chiropractic is so much more about that nervous system and how can we get your brain and body communicating and functioning better so you can be living your life the best you can. It's not about the popping and cracking of the spine and the joints. Right. Like, we're talking about what is happening right now with kids spending time outside in posture, and how can we enjoy this time of life more than we're talking about, am I going to make that go pop, snap,
right.
snap, crackle, pop. There we go. That's right. What I was going for.
Good old Rice Krispies. And it's not just the slouching from things like being at a desk and looking over a book at school, or, writing stuff down at school, or tablets, computer usage. Nowadays, all kids have Chromebooks, whatever. I know with my kids, I was blown away by every day they'd come home. And maybe I don't remember it the same when I was a kid, but even with Chromebooks, they still come home with backpacks that are so full of garbage.
And there's so much in those backpacks.
Oh, so much.
Also, it's a grateful thing of, hey, for the most part, this is a 3-month season where there's less activity there with backpacks.
Right.
They aren't wearing those. They aren't impacting the posture. But by the time you start putting what are usually 10, 15 plus pound backpacks these days on kids on a growing spine, it creates a lot of imbalances with, okay, improper pressure backwards, and what are we getting forwards? And then we need to figure out where's our head in space to counter all that balance, where's our center of gravity, and it's like, okay, well, I just throw this backpack on because I'm supposed to, and I need to carry my books to the next class. You don't think about what's happening to your spine every time you throw this backpack, and we're not even going to get over the, is it on one shoulder, is it on both shoulders? Like, again, how long do we have?
As a kid, I remember, like, you didn't wear it on both shoulders. That wasn't cool. You slung it over one shoulder, you're fine.
If it counts for anything, I never was cool, so I don't know what cool is even anymore.
I get it. But now it's like they have these ones that, like, they have a buckle in the front to make sure you use both of them, even though most of them don't. And, yeah, it's absolutely insane. I do want to take a moment to talk about, and I know this is a rabbit hole we could go down quite a bit, when we talk about kids and their device usage. Obviously, we want them to be out moving, whatever. Mm-hmm. We're not discounting letting them do things like play on their phones, play on their tablets, play video games, things like that. Those are all perfectly fine. But we're saying incorporate some movement in there.
Yeah, it definitely is plenty of times I hear, okay, technology is getting all the bad rap. Everything that's going on when you hear text neck or phone neck and looking all the way down at screens and tablets. If you're reading a book back in the day, you were down, your head was down and stuff to be reading the book. It's just that there were more opportunities for natural interruption, and your brain wasn't as wired to be like, some people are fantastic if you're a reader, and if they are so engrossed in the book, I'm not going to be able to put the book down, after this chapter and this chapter, and I got to see what's happening next.
Right.
But it tends to be a lot more of what's even happening with some of the dopamine and serotonin impacts of video games or phone, or some of that mental health component that's leading to, I'm not wanting to put this phone down to take that break to go sweep like you suggested.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, as you said, I know my sister was an avid reader when I was a kid. You'd find her in all types of positions, laying flat on the bed and her head tipped way back as she's reading. Or, she had a big wide windowsill. So she'd sit in the windowsill, like half up the wall in like an L shape with the book held up above her, which I don't know how she didn't just drop the book on her head doing it. Kids do the same thing nowadays. It's no different.
Right, that's no different. And what we need to also be looking at is what are some of the other things that have changed in childhood development, leading to the fact that you do hear a lot more what's happening with the mental health epidemic and some of those struggles there, or what is really happening of posture has significantly decreased for every age from children all the way up recently. Like, again, what are some of those changes causing that? And what are some of the things that people don't even think about that are behind the scenes that, wait, this is impacting my daily health every single day?
And you touched on something really important there because, and I've been told this so many times in my life, your posture and how you carry yourself in certain things can have an impact on your mental health and your emotional state. If you feel slouched and you feel closed in, whatever, it does make it harder to breathe. It makes your blood flow constricted. That can affect how your body operates, and it can put you in a more, depressive or closed off or unhappy state for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And standing up and opening up, does a lot for opening up that blood flow, letting, things move and do what they got to do, and can make you feel better. Like, I always thought that was a joke when people would say, like, oh, stand up and smile, you'll feel better. I was like, no, you won't.
Yeah, I always remember in school, they're like, okay, that superhero pose. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Why are you making me do this? And then it's like, when you actually look at the research, there's benefit in some of those things. And when you look at chiropractic, and as a whole, if we even just step back to flexion and extension, those are two big postures of the body. So flexion is we're more curling into a ball.
Okay.
Extension is more if you're vertical or even, I'm going to say extending backwards, leaning backwards. And there's different areas of the body where we're going to need some components of flexion and some components of extension. You can't have one without the other. There needs to be, some balance.
Right.
As a whole, flexion is considered the protective state. So when you look at, a newborn is a great example. What do? They just curl up in that tiny little ball and they're so cozy. Well, their only responsibility should be to eat, sleep, and poop. But you also find a lot of babies these days who I'm like, ooh, they're not pooping. Oh, they're screaming and they're colicky and stuff. And when are they colicky and screaming? They're overextended. They're in that extension way too much.
Right.
Because that's their body's way of, hey, I'm going to express this cry because I'm in this position that isn't comfortable, and you can't get them back into that cute little flexion.
Right.
What they need at that time in that age and stage of development is flexion to protect their internal organs. They're in such a huge development stage that's necessary. When you start to get older, we want to be able to take away, or what I'm going to say more better, adapt to life to allow more extension.
Right.
I like to think extension and expression, so like being able to express yourself in that expression of life,
right,
as parallel words there. So that's when you want to see more shoulders back, chest up, and it's like, okay, I can look up to the sky, and
right,
some of those pieces, because again, that flexion, when as a kid, child, adult, etc., if you're in that flexion, you can't take a full breath. You can't get that oxygenation that you mentioned, and literally your brain is slightly ischemic.
Right.
And people who don't know what ischemic means, that means you're not getting that blood flow that we need to talk about. Talk about a stroke. Again, that's the lack of oxygenation.
Right.
Talk about some of these big clots, stuff that's issues with oxygenation. You aren't getting the proper oxygenation in the brain, and every single adjustment to the spinal column impacts that prefrontal cortex of the brain. that prefrontal cortex of the brain helps put you into extension every single time.
And you mentioned stroke being an access of the oxygen in the blood and everything around. And I just found out relatively recently that you can get strokes in places that aren't your brain.
Absolutely.
I talked to somebody who had a stroke in their spine, and that led to a bunch of problems. And I thought, how is that? No, strokes are always in the brain. That's what you hear about all the time. No, those are the ones that, maybe get focused on because of the effects that they have, because obviously that's the control center for whatever's going on. But having that lack of oxygenated blood throughout your body is not a good thing.
If you talk about or you ever see a child born with cerebral palsy, that's again that lack of oxygenation to the brain, that they just literally in the womb, they never had that proper oxygenation. So you often will see them, in a little bit more of that crouched,
Right.
hand or, kind of flex, again,
Right.
very flex position, and that they don't have that ability to fully extend. And physical therapy can be great, but how often are we really talking? First avenue is how can we make sure we get more oxygen through the brain and adjust these children, adults with CP?
Right.
And again, fantastic that what physical therapy does to help them. And it's, again, we
Right.
want as much expression in their life as possible.
Absolutely. As we're hitting the bottom of the hour, I do want to remind everybody this is a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. If you're just tuning in, we're sitting down with Dr. Ellie with Generations Chiropractic, talking about summer being here and, of course, how your chiropractic needs don't necessarily go away just because summer's here and you get out and about. Let's talk a little bit about parents, because I see a very interesting note here about how with kids being out of school, sometimes that means stress levels on parents increase. They don't get that kid-free time that they might be used to.
And it really is so funny you say that, because yes, totally true. And often kids respond quicker to care in the summer because they don't have the stresses of sitting in the classroom all day. They don't have the
Right.
backpacks. They don't have everything that we've talked about for the last half an hour. Whereas parents, especially if you get the privilege of being a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home parent, you now have a little child following you along, especially if they're school-age kids, and you might not get your own me time that you're used to.
Right.
And, okay, I want to juggle getting them to this activity and this activity, and then you're like, how can I provide opportunities for this child? And you're potentially losing time to take care of your own self-care.
Right.
So one of the biggest things is, first off, celebrate the beauty that you get to be a parent too. Like, that's quality time you're not going to get as the kids
Right.
always.
As I was saying, they're only
continue to
this
grow
age
up,
once.
yes.
Right.
So it's like there's so much beauty in that, and even as husband or wife or parents and different genders and stuff, there are all needs that we can help address for them to be living as optimally as they can, even if they are adapting to more stresses right now. And so many times it can be even, again, going for a nice walk. I know we've already mentioned that, and people are like, really? Instead of chiropractic, we're talking about going for a walk? It helps so much, again,
Right.
with the mental health and being able to clarify and let out and see through all of that struggle of, okay, you get to go with a friend, you get to go with your partner.
Right.
Females need to talk. That's actually how their brain de-stresses and decompresses.
Right.
Males, hey, give me heavy things to lift. Can I do some more the weightlifting things? And does it need to be, again, fully in the gym? No, but
Right.
how can you lift things? How can you move things there? And those are two big avenues for males or females that we can overall help them adapt to the daily stresses that they might be encountering more with having children around more often.
Right. I actually just read a very interesting article about the difference in men and women when it comes to handling certain levels of stress, where men will, as they say, we kind of think about nothing. We just empty our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's like, okay, so there's nothing to worry about. Everything's gone. Whether that's staring off at something that we're watching or something that we're doing, just mindless, whatever. And we see that as perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
Women use dissociation, and then that's often seen internally and by others as being a negative thing. You shouldn't dissociate from life. You got to be here. You got to be a mom. You got to be whatever. And they have a harder time with it, which means they oftentimes, and lucky for us, not so lucky for the ladies out there, but they have a harder time getting rid of that stress.
In one of the neurodevelopmental courses I had previously taken, when we're talking about female development of brain and male development of brain, and again, from school age all the way up to adults, it might be cliche, and I feel like we all heard it even before the course, but male brains are more like a waffle. I can put it in the little sections there, and, we're good. Like, let's just take that and focus on the little section of the waffle, versus females are a bowl of spaghetti.
Right.
Everything is more intertwined there, so it's how can we do our best to tease out some of that? How can we also acknowledge that to be a whole person, I want you to be able to communicate all of the things. I also don't want males to be like, I'm only going to live in this one little pocket of my waffle. Like, you have a lot more essence to you too. How can we express all of it in a healthy way?
And that's why a lot of this, like mental health care and chiropractic, really do go so well together. Because when you think about mental health, obviously, that's your brain. That's what's going on up there. And a lot of different mental health things have to do with chemical imbalances and other stuff that are going on, which a lot of that can be related to blood flow, oxygen levels, as well as, activity levels, what you eat. There's so much that goes into it. And chiropractic's just one of those little avenues. And I know you said, like, well, we're telling people take a walk. You can't go see your chiropractor every day. It's just not feasible. It's probably not a good idea to go daily to a chiropractor.
Especially depending on different styles of chiropractic too. Like, some styles are so low force. Yeah, maybe you could get adjusted more regularly. Others who are like, nope, you're here at this one time, I'm going to adjust every single thing.
Right.
And there's, again, different avenues of, that's why I'm the biggest advocate of, if one style of chiropractic doesn't resonate with you, reach out, because I'm such a firm believer chiropractic is a beautiful and beneficial thing. And there's different styles, different expertises, different skill sets. Find something that works well for you.
Right.
Because, again, we aren't with you 24/7.
Right.
So, like, how can we overall provide tools that, depending on style, depending on frequency, depending on the fact that I have people who travel an hour. When they travel an hour, like, realistically, I know you're just not going to get the frequency of care I'd ideally want. I'm like, I'll give you my ideal recommendations, and that's a lot to be getting in and out of the vehicle. And then there are part of me, I start to even wonder, I'm like, okay, questioning, I'm like, well, we did this beautiful adjustment, great results, and now you're literally going to go back to immediately sitting in a chair or sitting in the car on the ride back, So, like, again, the balances of where are you at life? So how can we meet you where you're at and supplement other things throughout the day in a good manner?
And of course, if you walk out of your chiropractic session with Dr. Ellie, maybe, because it is Generations Chiropractic, maybe the whole family was there, mom, dad, couple of little ones, everybody getting adjusted. You're all feeling great. Family walk together is a nice way to prolong that good feeling and get your body to continue to feel and maintain that feeling. And then that becomes your in-between supplemental thing.
Movement has been even shown to help re-enhance and strengthen the quality of an adjustment. So, aside from the fact of, hey, you just got to adjust it and go for a walk, yes, it's one strengthening the adjustment, but I want it to also be strengthening the family bond. As we also talked about, that mom needs to talk. Beautiful time to talk when you're on a walk. You also get to hear, hey, kids sharing about their day and their excitement, or maybe they're on their bikes and their scooters as, they're going a little bit further ahead.
Right.
Again, they're having fun, they're playing, and they aren't even realize that this is movement and activity.
Right. And I know for us, whenever we go for walks, we have the Rock River not too far from our home. So we'll go over there and then we'll talk about, like, hey, what plans should we do? Should we go fishing? Should we do this? Should we do that? I'll try and point out things and teach the kids a little something. Of course, now they're getting old enough where they think they know everything. But, it's a great bonding moment.
And then, of course, there's Minnie Pearl who, believe it or not, she does not always make my walks the most joyous. So I know dogs can contribute to, like, hey, we get to take the entire family and the dogs out on a walk.
Yeah.
And Minnie Pearl's like, I'm going to pull this direction. I'm going to pull that direction. Oh, we need to sniff the grass here and play and roll. And I'm like, dog, this is why we need to get you adjusted all the time, too, because you're doing such weird things on your walks.
Much like a toddler, right? They all do weird things on their walks. You got a great note on here, and I love this. And I'm literally going to quote it word for word. The goal of chiropractic care is how can we get the nervous system functioning better so we can adapt to the stresses of our life so we can live full out. We have so much stuff we fill our days with. I know teammates here at the office that they might be here early for a show, and then they might be in charge of a bunch of other stuff they do in their office. They're on the go, collecting interviews, doing other stuff. Then they're driving the kids around everywhere afterwards. And when the day finally winds down for them, it's, 14, 16 hours later before they finally get to sit down and be like, whew. And it's like, that's a lot. That's a lot you got to fill your life with. And you might need help with dealing with all of that you're putting on yourself.
And I want every single moment of that 14, 16-hour day to be as intentional as possible. And that's what chiropractic helps with. We create some of that intention and focus to allow that body to adapt to that thing that is directly ahead of us and directly in front of us. Because we aren't going to take away the stress of that 14 and 16-hour day.
Right.
And again, we've said this before, stress isn't necessarily innately a bad word.
Right.
We often associate it as bad, but we need healthy stress to continue to adapt to life as well.
Right. We talk about guys and their weightlifting, so to speak. That's what you're doing. You're stressing the body, you're stressing the muscles, the joints, whatever, and they're building back stronger, coming back stronger. Of course, everybody I know that weightlifts on a regular basis will tell you that they make sure to get regular adjustments to keep everything aligned, keep everything the way it needs to be, because you can't have good weight loss. You can't have, well, I shouldn't say you can't. It's difficult to get good, consistent weight loss. It's difficult to get good, consistent muscle growth without having good, consistent blood flow, oxygen flow, and nutrient flow to the parts of your body you're working out.
And that's why I'm also a huge proponent of, some people are like, chiropractors, okay, they hate all these other professions. No, that's why I love movement. I love massage. How can we work on stimulating that vagus nerve that, again, does so much into the calming sense? What are other tools like the sauna or dry needling or float tanks or acupuncture? Lots of different varieties of things that we can all do to help supplement our body. And then I know I've mentioned those previously in other days that we've been able to chit chat before and share the information. And what are some of the other things that we haven't ever even touched on yet? So you were mentioning nutrients. There is so much to be said for about food quality too, how that is literally impacting why, when you talk about kids, is it really the video games, or is food quality not quite there anymore?
Right. And it's so easy nowadays, especially with summer. We want to go. Maybe the kids have a lot of activities they're in. You got soccer in the morning, you got t-ball in the afternoon, there's an art club in the middle of the day. It's so easy to be like, oh, well, we got to eat. And you hit a drive-through somewhere. And you do that 3, 4, 5 times a week, when they were used to getting maybe a more balanced, nutritious lunch at school, or a more nutritious breakfast at home before the day started, things like that, home cooking meal in the evening. Not to take away from the deliciousness that can be fast food, but you got to think about those nutrients.
Well, and then you go back to that potentially is, again, a lot more stress on the parents, because we're like, now you can think of it as, I get the struggle of needing to cook more meals for the kids, or you can think of it as, hey, this is the privilege that I get to be able to provide the nutrients to my child so that my child can have the reserves, or that I can have, again, a good quality food and good quality nutrition there that literally creates the building blocks for the cells and the nutrients of our entire body.
I actually know several people who are stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home dads that have gone through that roller coaster of, when the kid's really little, it's, I can't leave them alone for anything. I don't have time to go take a shower. I don't have time to go do anything for me. I haven't had a haircut in, 9 months. I haven't had my nails done in forever. I've done nothing for self-care because it's all about this little one. And then eventually they get into the school system or daycare or whatever, and time frees up and opens up, and then you miss them. Then you get used to them not being there for most of the year. And then when you have them back, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you can once again be in that mindset of, well, I don't have time to do anything for me, which can be tough. But as we discussed earlier, those are also the moments you got to cherish. You're not always going to get those free times and those free moments, and the kids are going to find more and more things they want to do that don't involve you.
And so then some of the other things that I like to think are simpler, potentially it's like, well, wait, if I am so busy and I don't have the time to do these activities of my form of self-care, what can we look at of blue light is a big thing that triggers and impacts the quality of sleep.
There's a note on that on here. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so blue lights are often found on different screen time. So when you actually hear studies that it's like, hey, if you avoid screen time right before bed, that's a good thing, within that 2-hour window, well, maybe this is at the time that we want to talk about either one, getting rid of some of those devices before bed so we don't have the screen immediately and then our brain is trying to sleep and get quality rest, or look into something like blue light glasses or screen protectors that, block some of the blue light rays and stuff, so that you're not getting all those signals that are constantly basically telling the brain to stay turned on. When we go to sleep, we're going to need that quality rest. We want the body to be able to rest and heal, and sleep is the number one key component that allows the body that opportunity to heal.
Right.
So if you're like, hey, I'm now so busy because I get the pleasure and beauty of the kids during the day. And again, I know there are plenty of parents out there that are probably thinking, oh my goodness, why does she keep saying joy, pleasure, that kind of thing? Like, sometimes it feels like a burden.
It can.
And this is even where positive mindset of thinking about the opportunity that you get that opportunity to spend this time with your child, even though like right now, I'm also at the point where I get to celebrate that I have Mini Pearl gone for the week.
Right.
So I get that. It's like you get to acknowledge in that beauty too. And what are other things that can potentially help you adapt if you don't have the same time availability for yourself?
Right. I want to touch on a bit the blue light thing you were talking about. So I know my wife has the coating on her glasses for the blue light.
Yeah.
A lot of devices now have blue light filter thing you can turn on or off to help with handling that. I've been told that can be linked to everything from inability to sleep to possibly migraines, eye strain, a lot of different other things out there. So that's one of those where it's like, avoid that. And I don't know how much you know about this, but there are, I've been told there's lights that are beneficial, like colored lights or like infrared lights. Like I think you said you have an infrared sauna that is technically it's a form of light. You just can't see it.
Right.
That's beneficial.
So yeah, again, not the most knowledgeable on that, but absolutely yes. Different levels of light and stuff can be so good or potentially detrimental to the body. And we're starting to realize that, hey, a lot of these blue lights are not necessarily having the best impact on the body, which kind of brings me to the point of, are we talking blue lights or are we even talking EMFs? And if you ever heard of EMFs, that would be more like that electromagnetic field that basically all technology, even, the microwave, the toaster, like any electronic appliance too in the house, in addition to the screens that we have on us too and around us, like how are all of those emitting data throughout the air that is creating an impact on our health? Like something to be said for a combination of the blue lights and EMFs. And it's like, well, I love my Aura ring that I wear every day. It tracks all my stats of how well am I sleeping, am I recovering, that kind of thing. And the beautiful thing is even turning it onto airplane mode helps reduce so much of those EMF exposures that I don't 100% of the time need to know and look at my phone of, oh, this is what happened instantly and this and instantly. And I'll get the data when it syncs later on. I don't need to do it so constant. Do we need all the things with wireless? Do we need all the things with Bluetooth? Do we need all those things? They can be really beneficial and make things more convenient. And I do believe that they're a component that's contributing to why the body isn't necessarily holding adjustments as well, because there's just so many different stresses and so many different things impacting who we are as beings.
Right. So it's a good idea, to decompress from those things. And they can help you with your decompression you get from a good adjustment, which is also, again, super duper important. I want to move down to a few other things we got out of here because we talked a little bit about some family ideas for things that you can do to kind of keep your movement going. We've said walking. Walking is a great one. And that's an easy one. It's an inexpensive one, and you can walk to places, walk to the park, pushing the kids on the swing, whatever. It's great exercise for everybody. Running around, playing games together. Yard games are a great example. We're also hitting the summer months where there's a lot of outdoor activities or activities you can go to do that incorporate walking, but maybe incorporate some other fun stuff you can do as a family.
Yeah, and I mean, that's when it's also, I'm just so excited for all the opportunities we have here in the Beaver Dam area. Like, so many different things that we can just go to, and like every Saturday I look so forward to, okay, I'm going to just walk to the farmer's market. But, again, what is something like that you can just make an event out of it? Some people are like, oh my goodness, never go to a county fair or anything or any kind of fair because it's only going to be greasy and fried food and stuff. But think about that as, again, what's an opportunity to walk and play and have fun and experience and create those memories.
Absolutely.
Because it's where you also create a lot of those memories and create those conversations where also if mental health ever gets to be a thing, there's that relationship already built in those conversations. That's what's going to be key, is that sense of safety and having a relationship and knowing that there's a sense of belonging.
Absolutely. And when we talk about family activities and we're talking about reducing stress, we're talking about building those bonds. And one of the great ways that I've found is incorporating my kids into certain things like making dinner. We all cook together. We all have time together. You know, okay, you chop up the mushrooms, you get the salad ready, you do whatever. And everybody has their little tasks, all while we're playing music and dancing around in the kitchen. Sure, we're not outside taking a walk, but we're moving, we're doing things. And it covers a lot of those bases. It feels like fun. The kids don't feel like they're working out or doing a chore by helping to cook.
But it's those little bits of movement throughout the day
Right.
that you're talking about.
And maybe
Yes.
they learn how to make a good dish or something. So
You're looking forward to, like, ooh, when they want to take over all the cooking. You
Oh,
wouldn't
if
argue with that
only.
either.
If only, that'd be great. Although they're a lot like my wife, which means everything is going to have way, way too much garlic. Believe it or not, that is a thing.
Okay.
So we are winding down close to the end of the show here. So let's go ahead and wrap it all up. Give me a good summary. What should people be looking to do this summer to not only make sure that they take care of their needs chiropractically by coming in to see you, but also prolong the effects of those adjustments to make sure that they're having a fun and successful and productive and hopefully relaxed summertime?
Yeah, so again, number one thing I'm always going to say it, adjustments. It's impacting the nervous system. It's so much more than popping and cracking. We need good communication of the brain. And then once we get that good nervous system communication, things to really be helping it with, and other opportunities to kind of be adding in are, if you get that opportunity for even massage and acupuncture and sauna or dry needling and float tanks and, you know, all of those pieces. But let's even think about stepping back and what is your nutrition looking like? Hey, can we maybe turn off, you know, some of these things and put them onto airplane mode when we don't need them? Can we just be acknowledging where screen time is, like 2 hours before bed? Maybe we just need to get some blue light glasses. And most importantly, how can we get movement and communication and conversation with those loved ones around us? Because it truly is in community where we're able to fully heal and evolve to be our best selves.
There you go. Dr. Ellie with Generations Chiropractic. Of course, people can give you a call or text you, 920-885-0641, or they can reach out, generationschiropracticwi.com.
Correct.
Perfect. And you guys are located right here in Beaver Dam, which is awesome, offering not only the adjustments there, but you guys do have the infrared sauna that we had talked about, and, of course, focusing and specializing on that infant and child chiropractic, moms, pregnant moms, but also generations, family.
Absolutely.
So that's all awesome. And of course, stopping to see Minnie Pearl if she's on vacation. That just means you'll have to come back and see her again.
She'll be back next week, Monday.
There you go. Awesome. I want to thank you for taking the time to be on with us again today. Look forward to talking to you again soon, and can't wait to see what next fascinating thing we have to talk about.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This has been a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.